Hello everybody, my name is TV Sky, and I'm not having what you might call a great day today. So I apologize if my energy is going to be a little low. I'm trying to distract myself by doing some work, and by talking about something that really genuinely has been helping cheer me up today. The first episode of Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has been released by Nickelodeon for free on the Nickelodeon YouTube channel. There's going to be a link to it down in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself. This video is going to give you some spoilers. Not massive spoilers, because we're going to be kind of jumping back and forth in the show and mostly talking about the animation and stuff, but you could probably infer some spoilers just from some of the stuff that's going to be going on in here. So, this is the latest Turtles reboot. Like, we've had a bunch of Turtles reboots. We've had one in, like, the early 2000s, and then one in the mid-2000s, and then one in the late 2000s, and then one in the 2010s, and then, like, the latest one I saw was, like, the 3D animated show, which had a really cool visual style to it, honestly. I really liked what they were doing with 3D animation in that show. And so now along comes Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which takes as its concept the idea of being kind of a prequel to the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing. This is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with an emphasis on teenage. These are kids. Like, that's very much the kind of style and energy the show is going with, is that these are four idiot teenage brothers just kind of out there trying to be heroes, but also not really being competent enough to be great superheroes, and kind of being more concerned about making jokes and, you know, telling stupid jokes to each other, trying to make each other laugh, trying to make each other cringe, trying to play it cool when they really just are a bunch of teenage nerd dorks deep inside who happen to have ninja superpowers. So that seemed to be very much the concept of the show, and for my money at least, that really works for me. Like, that's, as an execution of a concept for the Turtles, that's quite interesting to me. It's like to really key in hard on the idea that these are stupid idiot teenage boys hanging out doing pranks and being stupid with each other, and having a very much that sibling kind of dynamic where they screw around with each other, they try and make jokes, they go out on like adventures mostly because they think it's fun, not so much because they have a sense of obligation or duty. And so the tone of the show is, like, the visuals are very dark. I should note, I've altered the colors and the saturation a lot in the footage that you're seeing on screen right now, because I want to avoid an automated copyright claim from YouTube. It's a lot more colorful in the actual show. But the colors are generally, like, the color palette and the color style is generally, like, very much on the darker side. There's a whole lot of very high saturation and just generally very dark color. And that's kind of contrasted against the extremely lighthearted tone of the show. Like, it really doesn't take itself seriously. And consequently, I feel like if you're an old school hardcore Turtles fan, like if you really love the lore and like the sort of the deep lore of Turtle stuff and the whole continuity thing, and the thing about taking the show seriously and taking the ideas behind the show seriously, this is probably not going to be the show for you, because it's really not interested in doing that. Splinter in this show, for instance, is characterized kind of as a bit of a lazy, trollish old man in a lot of ways. Which, and by the way, the reason the footage is going so slowly right now is intentional. I'm doing that. It's not because something is wrong with your media playback browser. He's kind of portrayed as kind of this old, trollish, kind of slightly neglectful, annoying dad who likes to mess with his sons more than he likes to encourage and help them. He's not really the wise old master. He's more like sort of a shitposting Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid. That more in that sort of vein. But he's still portrayed like, when he gets serious, as far as I can tell, he's probably still going to be a super powerful ninja master. It's just that he's also interested in sitting around watching old sitcoms and, you know, like old Japanese TV shows and stuff like that, like an old man. So if you are invested in the idea of taking the Turtles more seriously, like of actually caring about the lore and sort of the backstory and respecting the dignity of the characters, it's not going to be the show for you. Like, it's a show with a very different aesthetic, a very different energy. It's a show with some very different objectives about what it wants to be. For my money, it works. Like, I like those characterizations. I like just, like, the idea of working at the show from that perspective. That's fresh to me. That's interesting to me. A show that kind of looks at the Turtles and goes, this whole thing is kind of silly and ridiculous, so let's just lean the fuck into that. But mostly, I don't really care that much about the stories. Like, I'm freaking, I turned 30 recently, so I'm way too old to be particularly invested in this lore and story of children's cartoon shows. To me, that's not so much interesting anymore. What's much more interesting to me is the animation of this show. And the animation of this show is absolutely top-notch. Like, I am deeply, deeply in love with the way that this show is animated. The way I put it when I first saw it was, it kind of feels like it was animated by Studio Trigger. Like, it really, that's very much the energy. A Studio Trigger is the studio that did Kill la Kill. A lot of the same people who worked on Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, and most recently Darling in the Franxx, which I haven't seen, but which have certainly gotten mixed reviews. But in terms of what the style of animation this show harkens most to, like, I would compare it to something like Space Patrol Lulico or Kill la Kill most closely. Because as you can see in this shot, for instance, they operate a lot with very extreme perspective distortions, a hell of a lot of, like, limited animation action. There's a lot of animating on twos going on here, and a hell of a lot of smearing, and a hell of a lot, like you can see in the throw that Donatello does with his cyber staff right here. Let's see if we can find that again. Yeah. I need to zoom in a little bit on my timeline. I'm using a Premiere Pro to frame by frame my way through this this time. And as you can see, like in a shot like this, so many changes to the camera angles, so much extreme distortion of the characters to really kind of sell the power of their motion. And as you can see, as the thing flies away, there's a hell of a lot of incredibly dynamic camera shots going on. There's a hell of a lot of comedy shots like this, with very hyperactive, very energetic animation going on. And I am in love. Like, I really, like I said, I don't care that much about the story. I'm too old to care about the story in children's TV shows, but oh boy, do I enjoy the animation. Like this, as craftsmanship, this is just really gorgeous. And also, I adore the kind of visual style that the show has chosen, because this is probably the most, like, the strongest physical differentiation in terms of character design we have ever seen for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Take a look at, like, Mikey is the smallest one. He's very petite, he's very very slender, and just very small. Like, he's very much the smallest one of the group, but he also has the biggest eyes. Then we have Donatello with the large-ass forehead to indicate that he's, you know, Captain Intellectual of the team. But he's also, like all of them, he's kind of a shitty teenager, like a fun shitty teenager, not like a bad shitty teenager. When I say that, I don't mean that they're unsympathetic or not interesting or not fun to hang around with, but that they do shit like this. And behave in this way. But the physical differentiation between the Turtles is the thing that really has been fascinating me. Like, that they really lean very hard into the idea. Like, the Turtles show that I grew up with was the 90s show, the 80s and 90s cartoon, where the Turtles were literally just the same dude 4 times with different colored headbands and different weapons. Like, they were very much not different characters in any way, shape, or form. And that's something that over the course of the many reboots that the show has been getting, artists have tried over and over again to try and differentiate the Turtles more from each other, like to give them a little bit more physical differentiation, to give them like a stronger personality differentiation. But this show is the hardest in terms of leaning into that. And what we get is Mikey, like, being the small one, being the energetic one, but he's also characterized as the artistic person on the team. Like, he's the one who cares about doing art and arts and crafts, and he likes to build stuff and he likes to make stuff, and he's the creative one, which I think that's new. Like, Mikey just used to be the dude who likes to skateboard because radical, dude. Like, he used to be just kind of the jokester of the group, and everybody else was more serious than him. This is not so much so in the new version of the show. Leo is kind of a goofball, as indeed you can see in his character animation as he slides in from the left here, right? Like, he has this very carefree, fun-loving kind of attitude, which all of them do, really. But he's really not the leader of the group. He is more of a goofball, a little bit more of a snarker, a little bit more of a guy who's sort of too overconfident for his own good. They all are. But he's more taking on that role, while Donnie takes on more the sensible, level-headed, intellectual leader of the group, while Raph, interestingly, that's something that's really interesting to me, that Raph has been made the actual de facto leader of the group, like the dude who's actually the combat leader of the bunch, like the dude that they look to for leadership. That's a new characterization, because the classic Turtles characterization is that Raph is sort of the brash, angry one who has to be kept in line by his sensible, more level-headed brother Leonardo, and that one has kind of been done to death. It's been done a million times, so it's very interesting to see one where Raph, being the big brother, literally being the big brother of the team. And that to me is very, very interesting. Also, if you want a microcosm of what I love about the animation in this show, take a look at these two shots. That's it. Like, that's the thing I love about this show, because these shots don't matter. Like, they don't matter at all. They are completely and utterly unimportant to the thrust of the episode. This is just like the intro of the first episode, where they demonstrate that the turtles at this point are not kind of not ready to be heroes yet. They spend their time dicking around on rooftops, jumping in rooftop pools, and just kind of being shitty teenagers and causing havoc. And so after they have dumped all the water out of the pool with a massive epic cannonball, April puts down a slippery floor sign and a dry pool sign in order to warn anyone who might come after that, you know, there's been some shenanigans going on here. These two shots don't matter. They're completely unimportant. But take a look at this. Like, take a look at that. They animated the signs. Like, she throws it on the floor. It bounces back up. It has this kind of boing, flip out animation, falling down on its head, flipping over once again, landing and then rocking into place. And then they do the same thing with the other sign, but it's not exactly the same animation repeated twice. Like, they use slightly different animation between the signs. Someone making this show took the time and effort to animate these two, like completely ridiculously over animate these two shots of April throwing signs on the floor. That doesn't matter at all, but they wanted to sell, they wanted to lean into the goofiness and the fun and the personality of the show. They wanted the whole cartoony aesthetic to stick together. So someone spent time doing this, like time that could have been spent doing literally anything else related to the show. They spent it animating a really fun, interesting, dynamic shot of a couple of signs being put up. That to me is a microcosm of what I like about this show, is that at least on the animation side, like, people came to fucking play. Look at this shot. Like, look at how that is animated. All they need to do is have April get on Donatello's back for a ride, but take a look at what they do with it. That's showing off. That is showing off like a motherfucker. Because, like, look, first of all, it's just, they like in the freeze frames, if you freeze the frames of the show in a lot of places, you'll get to see the characters making the most ridiculous faces, which feels a lot like the animators having a little bit of a giggle. Like, just kind of making a little joke for nerds like me who are actually going to pause and look at it. But take a look at how the camera moves here. Take a look at how much April is going to get distorted by perspective. This is really difficult. I want to stress that. Animating shit in this style, animating things this way, is really fucking difficult. Keeping things on model, keeping things looking okay when you're distorting them so heavily with perspective. Like, look at how much they just go ham. Completely and utterly ham. Again, on this shot, that kind of doesn't matter so much. Like, all they have to do is get her on Donatello's back for, like, the flying thing that she's gonna ride on. That's literally all they have to do. But they just go the extra mile. They go so far beyond what they ever would possibly need to. And you can see it again here. Like, it would be easy to have, like, Leo and Mikey in this shot. You could just kind of animate the same thing twice and just have them jump over the fence in the same way. But again, they take the time to really give each of them their own way of moving through the world. And the same thing with Raph. Like, he has a very different jump into the air than either of his two brothers. And this is consistent. Like, I checked across all of the shots, across all of the character interactions, they always make sure that the turtles aren't moving in the same way. Like, they aren't behaving in the same way, that they have different physical expressions of their personalities. And again, just from an animation perspective, that takes so much effort. That means someone who worked on this show gave a shit. Like, the animation director cared. The character animators cared about this. They took pains to make sure that from an animation perspective, this show is very well put together. And it just makes me happy. It really genuinely does. You know what also makes me happy? Really cool animation like this. Like, just look at this. Just look at how much style and panache and personality that they've shoved into this kind of ridiculous... Like, he's got a jet-powered fighting staff. How stupid is that? How ridiculous is that? But they go in on it. Like, they go completely in on making this look as cool as humanly possible when he throws it. And then when it fails, take a look at how, again, much like the signs, right? Take a look at how much personality the staff gets as it fails. It, like how it just kind of gets blasted around and looks ridiculous in the air. And that, again, that too is something that just really works for me. Oh, and by the way, the effects animation. Take a look at this. How cool is that? Like, this alone is pretty cool. Like, that takes a lot of effort and work, but take a look at... Wham! Look at that! Look at that shot! That is just... That's some gorgeous effect animation. Like, that really makes this feel powerful. That makes this feel like it's got some punch to it. And they use this trick a lot, by the way. This trick of going completely black and white and fading out on speed lines, they use that a lot. And it works really, really well. But it's also just like, in the stuff that's not serious as well. Take a look at here, for example. The sword comes down, they have a reaction. Just look at the smear frames. I always love smear frames. Look at how differently Raph and Mikey react to wanting to get away from this. Look at Raph over here, who's just kind of flailing through the air, trying to get out of there. And then look at Mikey as he tries to get away from the dog. This is just... There's so much personality, there's so much expression and characterization going on here. And you can see it again in Leo. Like, Leo is very much displaying his personality here. This kind of overconfident... Here's a really cool shot. This shot, right? Like, first of all, again with the perspective distortions. This is animators showing off, because it's difficult to do this. It's really difficult to keep the perspective straight for a shot like that. Take a look at what happens next. How cool was that? Vroom. Like, this is why I thought about it in terms of it was almost like it was animated by Studio Trigger. I mean, maybe it was actually. I haven't checked the studio animation credit because I just wanted to talk about it. But like, look how much power we get here as Leo springs into action. Vroom. And look how badass he looks as he comes in like this. That shot right there. That freeze frame. That is pretty freaking badass to me. And you can see once again they like to use that complete black and white transition in order to get into the next shot. And by the way, I'll spoil it for you and say his attack did not work at all. It's helped me a lot to see this show today. And again, look at the smear frames that they're using here. As the dog comes in and scares the shit out of poor Raph. And this is also, like, when you see these, like, it looks very jerky and janky, right? This is not because they were stupid or incompetent or didn't want to do the job. It's because they want this energy. They want this rapid, ridiculous, kind of tumbling over itself energy for the shot to really sell the idea that Raph is tumbling over himself to get away from this dog. And that's very much an intentional choice when it comes to this kind of shot. And it's the same thing in the next shot that happens. The dog just kind of... A lot of smear frames being used here to really sell that kind of frantic, like, this is a dog that's shaking its chew toy kind of feeling before it finally throws him away. And it's just really good. But like I said, look at the differentiation in physicality between the turtles. You can see that for instance, Leo has a much larger chest than his brother Donnie, and Donnie has longer legs, and he's not that much taller, but like their physical proportions have been carefully made different. And it's the same thing with Mikey. Like, he's kind of a midpoint between the two other brothers, but his colors are very different. He has a much more saturated green color for his skin and a much lighter color for his chest plate and shell. And like all of that effort, and you can kind of see he's customized his shell with lots of little, bits of artwork, and he's painted faces on his kneecaps and stuff like that. All of that makes him more difficult to animate because there's a lot more details to keep track of from moment to moment, from frame to frame. But again, it's someone cared enough to make an effort. And again, take a look at the character animation. Like, they don't react the same way. Like, they've fallen in... To spoil a little bit, April got sucked into an alternate dimension. They jumped through a portal to find her. There she is. Here's their reaction. They're like completely different physical reactions to finding out that April is okay, right? And they move in different ways. They go into different poses, and like all of that takes extra effort. And then we have this lovely shot. And this is the thing that's, I think, is going to really sell me on the show from a personality perspective, like from a story perspective. This right here. That. Because they're just kids. Like, April in this version of the show, by the way, is not a journalist. She's not, like, working for Channel 3 News or whatever the hell it was she did in the 90s original. She has nothing to do with journalism or anything like that. And she doesn't really, as far as I can tell so far, she's really just, like, a kid from the city. That's really all she is. She's a kid from the city who has like various different kid jobs in the city. Some teenager just like the rest of them. And that's the basis of their friendship. Why is April friends with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Because she's a kid just like them. As a motorbike drives by outside, she's a kid. Just a child who enjoys hanging out with her cool friends. And they have this very kind of sibling-like relationship to them. And this right here, that the show, which is otherwise so concerned with like doing cool action shots and goofy cartooning and stuff, has a moment like this where it's just, they just hug. They just hug because they like each other, because they enjoy each other, because they're happy that their friend is okay. So they have a big, giant family group hug. That says something to me about how the show perceives the characters, because I don't remember a shot like this from the 90s cartoon. I don't remember a shot like this from any of the reboots, really. I sure as fuck don't remember a shot like that from the Michael Bay movie at all, in any way, shape, or form. That really didn't happen there. But the show does take just a few moments every once in a while to just kind of be nice and emotional and show that these characters, like, for all their snarking and for all their stupid jokes and for all that the turtles keep, making stupid jokes about each other and kind of going, ha ha, you screwed that up, kind of doing friendly childlike, sibling-like ribbing on each other, they like each other. They enjoy each other. And I don't know, like, I'm very tired of shows where the characters just don't like each other. Where they just, like, that's the thing about, if you watch the Michael Bay Transformers movies, in every single one of them, all of them, none of the characters ever like each other. Like, it permeates the entirety of the shows, and it's something that's been leaching into a lot of cartoons as well, is that the idea that of people liking each other, of enjoying each other's company, of wanting each other around, is sort of uncool, and that the cool thing to do is to just keep throwing jokes and insults at each other and kind of being mean to each other for no reason. And so I'm kind of an easy lay. Like, I'm easy to manipulate by just having a moment like this. A moment where people are just happy to see each other and take a little time to hug and hang out before we move on to something else. This is sort of the other side of the coin. Yes, there's a little bit of simpering emotionality to the show, but there's also this. that surprised me when I saw it. I have to say, he's been infected with like a mutagen. The villain has put a mutagen in him that's going to transform him into a mutant monster, right? How do we show that transition? Most children's cartoons would probably just like have him glowing and then transform kind of inside the glow, and we wouldn't really see what happens. This show goes a little harder. Like, look at his eyes. What the hell? That's horrifying. I like that. I can dig that. I can dig that the show is also willing to be a little edgy, but not edgy in kind of the shitty, like, I'm mad and angry at everything kind of way, but edgy in the way that it just occasionally shows you something that feels a lot like children shouldn't be allowed to see that. And that was kind of a lovely thing to have in that shot, particularly. And then he turns into this completely goofy-looking mutant afterwards, right? But it really sells us on the idea that the transformation was not placed. Like, his bones are deforming right in front of us, and his eyes are kind of, oh, good lord, that's a lot. I like that. I like that a lot. Oh yeah, this shot is pretty much just because I appreciate smear frames. So April opens up a trapdoor below them. See what happens next. Smear frames! I like smear frames. As you may know if you followed any of my animation criticisms in the past, I'm really a huge fan of smear frames. I love what you can do with them to smooth motion and just to kind of make things look cool and fun. And again, lots of smear framing going on as they explode into a ball. Voomp. And then April Fall comes down and has this lovely landing animation. Look at her. She just kind of tumbles end over end and just kind of lands like ding, 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 ding. And that's just that's something that happens with April a lot, like where the turtles tend to have extremely very fluid, very rubbery animation. A lot of what April does in several of the shots, at least in the first episode, is a little bit more kind of stiff in its expression, but she also has just like a lot of personality to her movement. Look at this right here over there to the left. Oh, I also love this. Like this guy kind of seems to be a primary villain, and he's one of the things about the show that I'm not so sure. Like his character design is a little bit, I don't know what his character design. What the hell? He's got goat legs and like horns, but he's also got a metal mask and long hair. And I don't really know about that as a character design for a primary villain, because he doesn't really look menacing so much as he just looks kind of weird and strange. And I don't really know about his character design, but something I love about his relationship to the turtles, right? Remember how I said the show is about who the turtles are before they become competent. They're idiots at this point. They're incompetent. They're not great fighters. They're not good at teamwork. They are overconfident. They keep making mistakes. And so if you have a villain who's actually even a little bit competent, why wouldn't he just like murder them straight up in the first fight? Like, why wouldn't he immediately kill them? And the show, from a writing perspective, quite cleverly solves this, because the villain is like a mad scientist kind of type. Like, he's someone who's trying to create the perfect mutants. That's why he transformed the dude in the previous shot into the fish monster, is because, well, he wants to create the perfect mutants, and he's having a lot of trouble creating the perfect mutant because they all kind of turn out a little shitty and wrong. But then he sees the turtles, and that's his reaction. His reaction is, they're beautiful, they're perfect. He's found the perfect mutants. And so over the course of their fight at the end of the episode, he spends a lot of time kind of talking about, you're idiots, you're morons, you're incompetent, but if you were under me, if I controlled you, if I could teach you how to be great ninjas, you would be unstoppable warriors. So why doesn't the villain just straight up murder them at their first fight? Well, because he wants them alive. He wants them alive because they represent something that he wants. Like, they are his objective, to get them. So he doesn't want them dead. He doesn't mind beating the hell out of them, but he doesn't want them dead. And that, from a writing perspective, that's just a clever trick to get around the problem of, actually, we're showing the turtles while they are incompetent morons who should be easily beaten by any halfway competent villain. This is also why I think the Shredder isn't the villain, at least in the episodes that I've seen so far. The Shredder isn't the villain because the Shredder is too competent and he would just murder the turtles, like, instantly. Anyway, back to April. She jumps into action, and by the way, this is just a great use of smear frames. But take a look at this. Take a look at this shot. Just look at how much she's kind of flailing around in the air. And what's really interesting, and she's over here, by the way, just kind of tumbling through the air like a moron right now as the rest of the turtles just kind of screaming at her. You remember how I said she kind of moves in a kind of weird, stiff way as opposed to the very fluid, dynamic way most of the turtles do? Again, April isn't really a competent fighter. Like, she doesn't, over the course of the fight with the villain at the end of this episode, she really doesn't do much of anything. Like, she really doesn't contribute much at all because she's just like a girl from the city. And this shot right here, what impressed me about it is that all at once, like, she looks cool as hell because this shot is just so impossibly dynamic, but also she looks like a goofy idiot, just kind of flailing around like a moron in midair, completely ineffectual, just kind of going, blah. which makes her kind of sympathetic and relatable, but it also kind of visually communicates the idea that no, she's not a super competent fighter. She's not really going to be any use in the fight itself. That's not really her game. It's not particularly to be useful. Her game is to kind of tumble end over end like a bit of a comic relief character, as it were, between the tensions of the actual show happening. And once again, look at the personality between the turtles. I don't know, I can't remember why Leo is on his head right there. I think it's because of an attack from the main villain. But take a look at how they begin to move, right? Take a look at the difference in physicality between, like, you can see Don, he's just kind of, very economy of movement going on there. He really doesn't do a lot of unnecessary movements in order to get moving. But Mikey does. Like, he has much more of a kind of boing, boing, boing running animation to him, while Raph, being the leader, first of all, and also being the biggest and the heaviest, look at how he moves. Much more sort of cumbersome. And then we have Leo, who's a little bit of a goofball, kind of struggling to get up in this way. And again, they really didn't need to put that much effort into a simple shot of the turtles leaping into action. But take a look at what happens next as Leo grabs his sword. How fucking cool is that? Like, how cool is that of a transition into a fight with the villain? Like, take a look at just how... This is so difficult. I really can't express to you enough just how fucking difficult it is to animate like this. With so much perspective distortion, with such a low camera angle, with so much action going on in the frame at the same time. This is so difficult. But someone made the effort, like someone cared enough to have Leo do this. Oh, and by the way, first of all, love the smear frames on the sword here. But also, Leo cuts the leg off a thing, of a living creature made of flesh and blood. Leo cuts its leg off. That would not have happened in the 1990s Turtle cartoon. Leo, like, that's the thing about, that's trouble that has always been with Leo, and also with Raphael in a lot of conceptions of the show, is that they kind of can't really use their weapons because they're lethal. Like, they kill people, they cut people in half, they cause bleeding. A lot of the Turtle shows haven't been willing to show that, to have Leo actually, you know, cut shit in half, or Raph stab people. Now, Raph has changed from Sai to Tonfas in this version of the show. But in this version of the show, Leo gets to cut things open. Like, things that bleed, he gets to cut them open. I think that's pretty cool. And again, you just need a shot of the turtles running towards a dude who's throwing shit at them. This is just being so extra and making so much extra effort for the sake of being dynamic. And take a look at what happens in this next shot. Take a look at how freaking cool this is. Right, you see what's happening? They're doing multiple perspectives, having characters get close to and then, you know, far away from the center of the action, crossing over each other, jumping behind each other, managing, like, to jump on the things that are flying through the air as they're flying through the air, getting hit in the face by one of the things that's flying through the air, while Mikey is still doing his jumping up routine in the background. Again, this is so fucking difficult. This is so much extra effort just to create a shot that's really, really cool and just looks really, really awesome as Mikey launches his brother with a great expression right at the enemy. And then he just kind of collides with us. It's just very good. And once again, Don with the really cool animation, except he's flying in midair right now, so wait a minute, I can't actually brace against the rotational motion of the staff. Whee! I love smear frames. I like smear frames a lot. And so, take a look at his expression as he gets thrown backwards from the staff. And then again, they really didn't need to spend a lot of extra energy. It's just a shot of the staff flying towards the bad guy. But no, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have April show up in the shot and fade into the background. We're going to have Mikey show up and fade into the background. We're going to have Raph show up and fade into the background. And then we're gonna have a perspective shot of the villain's hand with the staff just narrowly flying between his fingers, crossing over his shoulder as the camera transitions into a view of the villain's face, and the staff collides. Lots of cool effect animation, and then we have this moment of quiet, and then the staff does this. Vroom. Flipping him over on his head, and everything explodes. Take a look at how much effort went into just the dust animation and the debris that's flying around here. It's crazy. Like, the thing that's crazy to me is just how much time and effort was spent on this stuff. Like, just every time they had an opportunity to do a little bit more than was necessary, they did. Like, take a look at the staff as it comes back to him here. How Donatello catches it. Again, heavy perspective distortion into the frame, smear frames around in order to catch the staff, and he's rotating on his own axis, again, keeping a character on model while doing heavy perspective distortion, while rotating that character into the shot as well, and then even more heavy perspective distortion just to get a cool shot. That's really hard. Like, it's impressive. Again, with the heavy perspective distortion. Every time the show has an opportunity to be impressive, it takes it. And there's like multiple, the next sequence we're gonna see here, the Turtles fighting the bad guy. They don't just do that in the first episode. I checked out some of the other ones, and they do shots like this more than one time. Like, they have multiple shots where the Turtles are taking on the villain as a team. And take a look at how this plays out. Raph jumps in first, gets beaten back by the villain. Here comes Leo, overhead, bam, slams down. The villain blocks him, beats him off, like beats him away, gets kicked in the face by Leo doing a spin kick as Mikey is coming into the frame, swinging his weapon around, getting ready to launch it at the villain, who has just barely managed to kick away Leonardo before managing to flip his way out of danger. As Mikey spins around, the villain flips over once again, and here comes the shot from above. Pow, getting blocked by the arm. And now, as Mikey is about to be disengaged upon, here comes Donatello, jumping into the frame, finally with all of the Turtles together attacking, and then the villain does this. Like, take a look at this. Just look at how fucking rad all of this looks. Like, I liked Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. I liked Dragon Ball a lot. This would have blown my goddamn mind. Like, just look at this. Just look. Show me an anime that goes this hard. Most of them really don't. But Rise of the Ninja Turtles does. Like, just the action shots in this episode are they're just mind-blowing. They're mind-blowingly good, I have to say it. Like, I don't see this level of quality in cinema animation sometimes. And then sometimes it's just a living meme. Like, I just really like just like this expression on the Turtles. This is when they find out that their weapons are magical. Mikey is the first one to activate the magical ability of his weapon. And everybody, again, they're stupid teenagers. They're like, holy shit, magic weapon, that's so cool. And then Mikey tries to explain how the weapon works. And again, look how much character that there is in the way that he moves, in the way that he animates. And then he accidentally activates the weapon, but he doesn't know how to control it yet. Look at the expressions of the others. And so, whoom. And then Raph gets excited about activating his own magical abilities, and take a look at how he emotes. Like that. Like he has that kind of, yeah, I'm gonna do it too. Oh, and here again, just animators showing off. Leo discovers the magical ability of his sword here. Unfortunately, the magical ability of his sword has nothing to do with cutting. It creates a magical portal in the air, on the ground, or in the air, or wherever he swings his sword, that he didn't really anticipate. And so we get this gorgeous sequence of character animation where he's just flailing. And then the portal opens up in the sky. And then I remember when I watched the episode, I was laughing out loud so hard at that. That is just, it's just so fun. It's so good. Anyway, this show cheers me up a lot. I'm just gonna let the rest of this play out at like, I think it's like at 25% speed right now. This show cheered me up tremendously today, and I've been gushing about it pretty much. Like, I'll completely understand, 110% I will understand if old school Turtles fans don't like what they've done to the personalities. If they don't like how goofy it is, if they don't like how silly it is, how many jokes there are, if they don't like how obnoxious the Turtles have become. Because they are obnoxious. That's the thing I've been emphasizing, is that they're shitty teenagers. Of course they're obnoxious. They're not cool. They're shitty teenagers. And that is probably going to turn a lot of people off. But if I was 10, if I was 12, watching that happen, my mind would be so blown. My mind would be so thoroughly blown, because like this level of action animation just generally doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen on TV a lot of the time, especially not in Western shows. Like, anime sometimes, like over the course of a season, will have like maybe one episode with a really cool, well-animated fight scene, and then most of the other fight scenes will just be kind of mediocre, because that's how the anime industry works. There are multiple cool fight scenes over the course of the episodes I've seen of this show so far, and that's just... I'm really happy that this exists. I don't know if it's going to run for very long, because again, there might be some fan backlash because they don't like what's being done to the personalities, but this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show I wish I had when I was a kid. It's just such a delight. Every time, every shot, every behavior, all the characters, their motion, the action direction, even the color palette is really kind of cool and good. Like, it really seems to have mastered that kind of post Batman the Animated Series kind of gothic noir, cyberpunky, but still recognizably normal modern style that's going on, especially in the alternate dimension here, where we have this science and magic technology fusion thing going on in the background. I like it. I mean, I like it a lot. I get if a lot of people aren't going to like it, but this, to me, is just, it's absolutely brilliant. It has cheered me up immensely, and I'm very happy that this gets to exist. This little Leo keeps flying. Anyway, the reason I've not been having a great day otherwise today is one of my pets has developed cancer. And there's really not a lot that can be done about that. So tomorrow, taking them to the vet, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. And the reason I bring this up, and I really don't want to fish for sympathy points. I'm not asking you to donate to my Patreon or anything. We've got the medical costs covered. It's fine. Everything's cool. It's just I wanted to bring it up because I've been going on a pretty good clip recently, uploading videos. There's been videos like on a daily or near daily basis for a while now, and I might take a little time after tomorrow to distract myself with other things. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe once I get home, the only thing I'm gonna want to do is work, because that'll distract me from you know, dealing with the emotional fallout of saying goodbye to a pet that I love. But I don't know. It might be that there's not gonna be videos for a while, just because I'm gonna need a little time. So that might be a thing. Anyway, I'm not really in the mood to do a dislike button fun story this time around. So, you know, like, share, and subscribe, all the YouTube stuff if you want to. And if you don't, that's completely fine. Thank you for watching. Check out the Turtles, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's a link to the episode down in the description. You should really go and watch it for yourself. Even if you don't like the personalities, even if you don't like the characters, the animation is just so next level, and you really have to see it in full motion to really get the full experience. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you whenever I upload the next video.